Welcome everybody. Today's lesson is about analyzing the solutions to quadratic equations. To do this, we're going to use something called the discriminant. Using the discriminant allows you to determine the nature or how many solutions a quadratic has. When using the discriminant, there are three possible outcomes. One is that your number is positive. Two, the discriminant could be 0. Or 3, it could be a negative number. Now each one of these outcomes tells us something different about the solutions. So, looking at our table in the middle, I can see the three different cases. First, if I get a positive number for the discriminant, this tells me that there are two real solutions. This also means that the parabola crosses the x-axis in two locations. The second situation would be that if the discriminant was 0. If the discriminant is 0, there is one real solution, and that tells me that the parabola intersects the x-axis only once. Lastly, I could get a negative number, and that tells me that there are no real solutions. This tells me that the parabola crosses the x-axis in no locations. Now, if there are no real solutions, this does tell us that there are in fact two complex solutions. They will be conjugates of one another. So, again, if I get a negative number, that tells me there are no real solutions, but that there are two complex solutions. So, in summary, the discriminant tells us the number of solutions a quadratic has. If I get a positive number, there are two real solutions. If I get 0, there is one real solution. And if I get a negative number, there are two complex conjugate solutions, or no real solutions. Let's try to do this on our own. If you flip to the back and look at example number 1, we'll use the discriminant to determine the nature of the roots for each equation. Alright, to review, our discriminant is b squared, but please don't b squared of these problems, minus 4ac. Also, remember that the a is the value that comes in front of x squared, b is the value that comes in front of the x, and c is the constant at the end. So, let's look at part A. I'll plug in the values to the discriminant. I get 2 squared minus 4 times 6 times 5. This gives me 4 minus 120 for a total of negative 116. Because I got a negative number, this tells me there are no real solutions. In other words, there are two complex solutions. Let's look at part B. If I plug my values in, I get negative 12 squared minus 4 times 9 times 4. This gives me 144 minus 144 for a total of 0. Because I got 0, that tells me that there is one real solution. And lastly, for part C, I'll plug in my values to the discriminant, and I get 1 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 2. This equals 1 minus negative 24. Since I have the double negative, that turns to positive, and my final answer is 25. Because I got a positive number, this tells me there are two real solutions. Again, the solutions are the number of times that the parabola crosses the x-axis. So, in our last example, this meant that our parabola touched twice. For our second example, this meant that our parabola came down and touched the x-axis and then shot back up, only touching once. And our first example said that it did not cross the x-axis at all, so the parabola could be up here somewhere, leaving us with two complex solutions. Alright, let's look at an application. If I wanted to use the determinant to figure out how high, or rather whether a ball reached a certain height, I could use the discriminant theorem. In this problem, we're asked if a ball actually reaches 4 feet high when using the given equation that models the height of the ball. To do this problem, we want to substitute 4 in for h. Now, after I've plugged in 4, I'm going to go ahead and solve for 0, which allows me to try to find the solutions of the quadratic. I'll subtract 4 from both sides, leaving me with 0.4x squared plus 2x minus 2. Now I'll use the discriminant. If the discriminant turns out to be positive, this means that, yes, the ball does in fact cross the x-axis at 4 feet, telling me it reaches 4 feet high. So, let's check. I plug in 2 squared minus 4 times negative 0.4 times negative 2. This leaves me with 2 squared minus 3.2. 4 minus 3.2 is 0.8. So, since this is a positive number, it tells me that this parabola does in fact cross the x-axis, telling me that yes, the ball reached 4 feet high. There you have it. That's the discriminant. Again, I use the discriminant to determine the number of solutions to a quadratic. A positive number means 2 solutions, 0 means 1 solution, and a negative number means no real solutions or 2 complex solutions. Well, that's it. If you have any questions, we can cover them in class. See you tomorrow.